What is up, world of the internet? Brian Hurst coming to you from my home office this afternoon. And today we're going to be talking about what is the one thing you cannot do when making major life decisions, both in the world of real estate and in life. We're going to be talking about that today and more with our very special guest, none other than my own mom warming up in the bullpen, Paula Hurst. We're going to be talking about that today on the Brian Hurst Show. Well, welcome everybody today to episode 3 of our weekly broadcast on the Brian Hurst Show. And for those of you who may be joining us for the first time, this is a show that's all about things pertaining to the world of real estate and in life. This year marks my 12th year working in the real estate industry. And, I've seen people make a wide variety of decisions, but this show both deals with what I do by vocation, but there's a number of things that I do by avocation. And when it comes to major life decisions, what is the one thing you cannot do when making those decisions? Now, in the world of real estate, it does elicit a great deal of emotion because it's dealing with a couple of things, both hundreds of thousands of dollars and also people's most basic life need, and that is shelter. And so it just brings about a great deal of emotion. And one of the emotions that major life decisions brings up is fear. But it has been my experience that fear is the last thing that you should use as the basis for making life decisions. Fear-based decision making often results in poor decision making. This applies, of course, to real estate, but it also applies to other areas of our life. So I found something interesting on the World Wide Web here. Just did a quick Google short search, and let me share that with you real quick. So here it is. This is a website. I don't know who Ashley Jansen is, but I feel like this is worth sharing. What is fear-based decision making? Well, it is making fear-based decision making happens when you make decision based on being afraid of a potential outcome. These decisions compound one another into what becomes an impossible cycle of trying to plug all the holes before the dam breaks. You might strike a delicate balance for a short time, but eventually the dam will break. I have witnessed this deluge in my consulting sessions many times. In a word, burnout. Well, that's interesting, isn't it? What I've seen happen time and time again, and one of the greatest pieces of advice came from my mom, who we're going to hear from in a minute, and that is people make decisions more based on what they're afraid of losing than what they're afraid to gain. And the problem with fear-based decisions when it comes to the real estate market is, remember, you have to time it. Everybody wants to time it, but you have to time it right twice. So, right, you have to decide when you're going to exit the market at the exact right time, and then you're going to have to time it exactly right on when to enter the market. And of course, that's very difficult to do, and it results often in poor decision making. So, coming to us today on our show is the brightest real estate mind I know. She trained me in this business. And I want everybody to welcome my own mom to the Brian Hurst Show, Paula Hurst. What is up, Mom?
What's up, Brian?
How are you?
Congratulations on your show.
Oh, you like it?
Exciting.
So, yeah, our mutual friend. So going back, gosh, it's been a number of years ago. And when we worked back there in the back office at Sure Realty, back in those days, we had the paper files. So we were more chained to our desk than we are today. And so we'd sit there side by side and work those long days, and the vendors would come by. So they knew we were chained to the desk too, right?
That's right.
So we were kind of a captive audience, and most of them you kind of shined on. But when Bobby Tarango walked in the room, your face lit up, and I knew that was somebody that I needed to get to know. And he's been an extremely valuable source of wisdom for me. And he's been on my case for a while now about getting out there and getting content to the masses. So this show was inspired by him, and in part thanks to you.
Well, that is incredible. And I appreciate you sharing that with me. You know, there's an old saying that, well, back in my days, I don't know, I'm sure it's still the same today, but real estate agents have a fiduciary duty to educate,
Right.
about this buying and selling and the ins and outs to the extent that we can, the public, our clients. So we owe them that duty. So I applaud you for this show. I think you've got great things ahead, and it's going to just go off like crazy as people find out that you're here and you're ready to serve them.
Wonderful. And we look forward to having you on, more and share some of your wisdom and experiences as well, for that purpose, to educate people and help them understand, because the better educated people are, the better decisions they make.
That's right.
And it helps eliminate, because people fear what they don't know. So
that's
the
right.
more education they have, the better. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself. As long as I can remember, your vocation from the earliest of my memory growing up in Victorville was banking. Like
That's
my
right.
first memory was you working at Downey Savings on
18 years I was in that business. Yes.
And then there was something that happened after I left and joined the military, that you decided to change careers. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I was, as you say, in the banking industry. That's a rough business, as is real estate. However, what happened, Brian, was I was commuting up and down the beautiful Cajon Pass here in the high desert every day to go to work in Ontario. You never knew how long it was going to take you to get there. It could be 45 minutes, it could be an hour and 15, depending on the flow of traffic that day. But
even in those days, it was like that?
Oh, yeah.
I can't imagine what it's like for people now.
Exactly.
Oh man.
But to answer your question, what happened was I was managing a large branch for a huge savings and loan. We won't name them. But so as the branch manager there, putting in a lot of hours and a lot of time. I liked it. I loved my job. But there was only so much I could do to elevate myself in that industry.
Right.
One day it came to my realization that I'd hit the proverbial glass ceiling.
Right.
And I got to thinking, well, if I could do something in a private sector or self-employed wise,
right,
and work as hard as I do for them, then I know I could do better financially.
Right.
So, but really what prompted that thought was I had heard the pastor in the church we were going to a number of years before talk about a young woman who had done that very thing also, only she did it for different reasons, and how well she'd done in real estate. Another thing is there was a former manager for that same bank that was coming in, depositing her closing checks, and my mind just got to going.
Right.
I could do this. I could do this. So I gave my notice, and they were not happy. The district manager said, why don't you just go take maybe 2 or 3 months sabbatical and come back? I think you're burned out. And so I said, okay. So I left the door open and did exactly what she said and enrolled immediately in a real estate school here where we are, and jumped right in. When she called 3 months later, I said, no, you know what, Susan, I'm not coming back. I'm going to make a go of this. So I just jumped in with 2 feet, not knowing what I was doing. but it was sink or swim because I walked away from a guaranteed income, 401k, all of those good things, medical insurance. And so I jumped in and I knew I couldn't allow the boat to sink, so to speak. And
Well,
it's been a journey, Brian. It's been a crazy journey.
so as you know, I'm actively involved in our club down here,
Yes.
and on Thursday of last week, our club, we have a competition during this time of year called team play, where we play other clubs.
Uh-huh.
And the club we were playing on Thursday was Apple Valley Country Club.
Okay.
And my opponent was a mutual friend and acquaintance named Jim Phillips.
Oh, yeah,
And as we
absolutely.
were warming up on the range, he came to me, and we had, kind of exchanged information and talked back and forth over the last few years, but I think it clicked for him for whatever this time. He
Yes.
came to me and he said, "Your mom, absolute legend, top 5 agent every year in this industry. She is amazing." And I said, "You are right."
Uh,
So needless to say, and he was and is one of your peers.
yes, he is.
And so for me anyway, it's one thing for clients to speak well of you. It's another thing for your peers to speak well of you.
Well, if you see him again, tell him I said hi.
I will. Yeah.
Thank him so much for that wonderful compliment. My respect and admiration is mutual for Jim and his sister, who ran the Century 21
Right.
franchise here and Fairway, Century 21 Fairway. And so, absolutely, we go way back, and they're a wonderful family.
So you made an absolute, you know, everything that you had set out to do, which if anybody that knows you wouldn't be surprised by this, when you set your mind to something, and that is kind of the Hurst way, isn't it?
Yes,
Because it was certainly a character trait of my dad as well,
yes.
since gone on to be with the Lord. But it is, you set your mind, you set your hand to that plow, and you don't look back. You don't look to the right or the left, and that's what you did with that real estate career. And you made something out of nothing. You took that risk, and Lord knows that you probably had at some part of your emotion some fear.
Oh, yeah,
Taking a huge risk. You're leaving guaranteed income and 40
that's
hours a
right.
week you're entering into something where there are no guarantees, and you get paid squadoosh unless
That's
you
right.
close deals.
You get to pay out a lot, but with very little coming in those startup years. So, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so you at one point, and this was a conversation that I had with one of your former colleagues who you partnered with, and it blew my mind. You had never told me this. She's the one that told me that one year I think you closed was $100 million
I don't know
close
the
to it.
number, probably the dollar figure. However, uh, I was cleaning up some files a few months back, and I did run across an old MLS printout. For those of you who don't know, multiple listing service printout of our inventory that we were carrying during one of those really stressful years. And I think I counted like over 85 to 90 listings that we had on the market at that time. And that doesn't count the number that were in process. So,
Okay, so to give everybody perspective, the total number of single family residences listed for sale today, 961.
right.
So, and I realize we're in a different market, but if you were to translate that over, you would have 10% of all the lists. I mean, it's a
Right.
mind-boggling number. And
Yes.
as a result of just even that one year, much less, what was it, 18 years, you said? I mean, let's call it 20, just for
Right.
20-year career. You dealt with a lot of different people. I mean, you told me that coming in. You said, "Brian, you're going to meet all kinds of people in this." industry, people that had a measured, level head on their shoulders, and people that were all over the place. And you told me, this business, you got to be part, life coach, you got to be
Yes.
lawyer, you got to
Marriage
be,
counselor.
yeah, counselor, um, you know,
Financial advisor.
financial marriage counselor.
Yeah.
Um, you've seen people make decisions. Some of them probably did well, and some of them not so well. And tell us about maybe some people that made those decisions with out of fear, and it caused maybe some problems.
Well, you never want to, no matter if you're dealing, whatever commodity you're dealing with, you don't want to enter into what we would call the panic mode and be driven by that or driven by emotion. Your home, while it is emotionally, you're tied to it emotionally. When it comes to buying or selling, you need to weigh it carefully
Mm,
and not panic and not rush into things. I think one of the worst decisions I have seen people make is to not look at the market, position their house according to the market,
mm,
and to view it as something that they can get rich quick on. Uh,
right,
that's not wise. That's not a wise decision at all. So panicking, throwing it on the market just to see what will happen. I've seen that done time and time again. Let's just test the market, see what will happen. That is never advisable. You need to do your homework, consult with an agent that has a proven track record,
right,
can guide you through the process, and give you good counsel and advice.
right. Well, we purchased a second home 2 years ago, and that it's a risk. I
Yes,
mean,
yes,
but there was a couple of things about that process that helped me get my mind wrapped around how maybe clients are feeling. I'm taking a risk, but it's a calculated risk. And I'm looking at the time the rates were in the threes. I'm like, well, we're not likely to see this again. And the best and worst case scenarios on if we go this route and we go into a rent, like we find a rental, which is kind of a similar what back in 2011, that's
right,
what we
right,
had.
right,
Um, our very first episode was, when's the right time to rent? When's the right time to buy? And there
right.
is a time to rent. There's
Yeah,
no question about that. But there's best and worst case scenarios in both. And in that whole thing, I was like, okay, I'm running all the numbers. I'm taking a look at all the scenarios and I'm making an informed, educated decision based on what is the best and worst possible scenarios and not on what I'm afraid will happen.
yeah. Or gambling, Brian. You know, a lot of people, you could equate this to almost gambling, where they gamble with their highest asset. For
Right.
most of us, our home is our highest in value of an asset. And
Mm,
people want to gamble with it. In other words, they want to sell high and
mm,
buy low and
right.
do that perfect timing. And I'm here to tell you, there is no such thing. Uh,
Right.
you can kind of gauge the market and judge it, but there's always you can't second guess yourself. And there's always going to be that thing where you've signed that contract and then now you're looking to see if you did the right thing and if there's a better deal around the corner or if you should have waited. And so my advice is, if you're going to buy or sell, make sure that it's right for you, that you need to do it, that you should do it, and don't gamble. We don't gamble with our highest asset. Um, you know, when I was in real estate, I went over to a conference one year. It was a sales training. And I always did sales training to stay current and to make sure my skills were honed and I was on top of my game. But I went over to Las Vegas. It was at Caesar's Palace, this 4-day training for real estate agents. And I met a young man there who was actually from close by. He lived down in Corona, and a great top of his market agent, just, go getter. But here's the deal. I watched him one night in one of the gambling tables just plop down $500 here and again to see what would happen. And so he was gambling that he was going to put that down and walk out a winner. And that's kind of how people do it with their property.
Mm,
And they'll slap it on the market. Let's see what happens. Or we better buy now before rates go up or before prices go up. Well, markets come and markets go. And
right,
I'm going to tell you, you're never going to hit it just right. I've seen very few, even investors, that time it perfectly, where
right,
they cash out at the top and sell at the bottom.
right.
So
Because you're playing the long game,
that's right.
and whatever. I mean, real estate is a beautiful investment in building your family's generational wealth and estate.
Right. That's
Okay,
right. But it's a
but it's the
long,
long game,
yes.
right? You're not going to get in and get out and get that. That's not like you said. Even investors, they have to think of it in terms of building equity over time.
That's right.
The only other, you have to scoop something up at a wholesale price, which is another video altogether.
Yeah, and we can study trends and
Right,
kind of guess because typically now this market that we've been in has been unusual in that it has run longer than the normal cycle.
right,
They cycles usually run in 10 years,
right.
10-year periods. So you're in that 10-year period and you can expect it to top out and then start to decline. Now this one I believe is run, you can tell me probably better than I know, Brian, but has run a little longer than that 10-year average. But they do come and they do go. And the thing is, if you are gambling with the market in that aspect, you might as well be prepared, just as my friend was in Las Vegas, to take some hits, take some losses.
Right. Well, and what's interesting about this market is what we saw in 2007, and if you saw the show with Bobby last week, over 5,000 homes listed for sale.
Yes.
2007. Compare that with 961 today.
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about that's astronomical.
Right.
And if you see that, batten down the hatches. I mean, it's all, and then the note you along with the notices of default and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And it was so dramatic, the crash of 2008,
Yes.
that this cycle now over the last 12 years, since 2012, I can tell you when it started, and it was February of 2012,
Right.
because we were listing REOs, and all of a sudden they stopped sending us emails. We went from having an email every week saying, hey, here's an
Yeah.
assignment,
Yeah.
where we were getting one a month. I mean,
Right.
it happened that fast.
Right.
Well, that started, right, this trend of the values going up,
Right.
February 2012, and it's been that way ever since.
Right.
Well, part of what we see now, and even what happened over the last couple of years where it went straight up, was really just a correction.
That's right.
I mean, because it sunk so hard and so fast and so dramatically from a median sale price of about 350 to when we started working together. I think our median sale price was like 104.
I think you and I had a conversation about that during that
Right.
that run up to the crash,
Yeah.
and I told you this is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
It's gonna crumble. It's gonna fall, and a lot of people are gonna get caught and hurt.
Right.
And it was because they were speculating, they were gambling, they were going into those low interest rates that were set to reset in 6 months or 5 years or whatever. And they were thinking, well, we'll write it out and we'll sell for $200-300 or 1,000 profit and go plop it down on another one. And a lot of people got caught
Right.
because they were not expecting it to happen the way it did. So they got stuck with those high rates, a declining market, and that's a whole nother story. So, but whatever market you're in, you need to, if you're going to sell a home, make sure you position it to sell. And if you're going to buy a home, shop for that interest rate, make sure you do the basics, get pre-qualified, know the neighborhood, do your homework, and you'll be okay, no matter what the market is.
And so eliminate as best you can fear from the equation.
That's
Because
right.
fear is not our motivation. So
No,
it's not a motivation to act, and it's not a motivation to not act.
right.
Because over the last, again, now 12 years, the number of people that I've worked with that did not act, they're renting or whatever, and they're afraid to pull the trigger and buy a home
Yeah,
out of
right.
fear.
That's right.
Fear has cost these people not only 12 years of equity during a time where the market was going up, but
Well,
also even if the market comes down, your principal balance is going down,
yeah.
right?
Well, and here's the deal too. If you, especially, and I'll admit, with that listing uh, volume or the inventory that I told you about, I usually was more working with sellers than with
Right,
buyers. But so I'll say this with the sellers. Don't look at it as a loss here if you're having to come down to
right,
match the market,
right.
okay, to get your home sold.
Sure,
Because you're going to make it up on the other end.
right.
You're going to go now and buy another house for less. And again, there it gets to that thing where they want to sell high and buy low. Well, the only way that happens is if you cash out at the very peak, bank that money or invest it, then you still may lose. And then wait for the market to really start to come down. That's how that
Meanwhile, where are you going to live?
exactly.
Right? Because the
Meanwhile,
risk
you've got rental expenses, you've got the same ongoing expenses, so you're going to lose in that respect. So do your homework, do the pluses and the minus thing. It's plus if we do this, it's a minus if we don't type thing, and educate yourself and weigh your options. And if you need to sell, make sure you position your home in the top 10 best price houses on the market.
All right. Hey, one more
Especially,
question, Mom, before we get you out of here. And you
okay,
are phenomenal.
you are too. I'm
And
so proud of you.
yeah, well, I appreciate
You have
that.
done such an amazing job.
If
And
my mom can't be proud, who can, right?
I know, but I tell everybody I see, hey, he's better at it than I ever was.
Oh, I
So,
know that's not true.
yeah.
But you saw over 20 years the market go up and come
Yes.
down, go up and come down, go
Yes.
up. What has been interesting, if you study a 100-year trend, but just go back
Yes.
50 years, goes up, it comes down, it goes up, it comes down. In 2008, it sunk like a stone. And truthfully, Mom, in studying all of it against demographics and so on and so forth, I never thought we'd see the day where median sale prices would come back to
Right.
2006 levels.
Yeah.
And not only did they come back to 2006 levels, they exceeded them
Yeah.
by quite a bit, by about 15, 20%.
Okay.
So, and the market is cooling from our peak, 6 months ago, we're down about 3 to 5%.
Right.
And this year, we're probably going to hold steady or maybe gain another 3%. But the truth is, as the markets go up and go down and up and go down, whenever they come back, historically, they've always come back higher than they were at the previous peak, which is always an interesting phenomenon. And when people are navigating the ups and the downs and the ups and the downs of the market, how would you give them a word of encouragement and hope in navigating in their decision making?
Well, I will go back to what you just opened with. Don't panic, and make your decision in an unstable market, which we're seeing now. Don't try to sell if you don't need to or you don't have to. And if you are a buyer and you find a house, I don't know if there's still multiple offers on everything that's listed, probably so. But go in there with your best offer. Give it your best shot. Don't try to lowball and do all this negotiating back and forth, because you may end up really losing the house you really want. So,
Well, you're amazing, and we look forward to having you on again, and we'll talk more about. Gosh, I've got a whole list of topics on when to do such and such and how to do such and such, and there's no better mind than yours, and so we look forward to having you on again. But we really appreciate the time, Mom, and we're going to get this out there to the masses to help them glean from your wisdom.
well, thank you. It's been a pleasure to be with you, and wish you all the best out there in real
Awesome.
estate world.
Thanks, Mom. Love you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Paula Hurst, she's a legend in the business. Let's get to the weekly market update. But before we do that, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. The way this game works is the more times you hit the like button, the more YouTube sees the algorithm and the more people will see it and help us to expand our audience and help people navigate both life and real estate. So let's get to the market update this week. This is for January 30th, 2023. Last 30 days sold 229. And again, what that indicates is a slow market. That's a sluggish market in terms of demand. Our normal absorption rate in our market is around 500 homes per month. So during the slower months, that would be 350 to 400. During the hotter months, that would be somewhere between 550 to 650. So 229 homes is slow. The median sale price of those homes, $400,000. The number of homes in escrow, 370 homes. So that's a little bit of an uptick since last week. And the number of homes actively listed for sales down a little bit, 954. Again, to give you a measuring stick, we like to see 2,000 homes listed for sale if that's against our normal absorption rate. So if we're selling 400 to 500 homes a month, we like to see 200 home or 2,000 homes listed for sale for equilibrium in the market. And coming from our friends over at PRMG, Samantha Zumwalt, the going interest rate for your kind of garden variety FHA deal, if you are A plus buyer and credit, right around 5%. If not so much A plus, expect to pay just a little bit over 6%. Okay, thank you again for joining us on the Brian Hurst Show this week, and we look forward to seeing you next week. In the meantime, God bless you. We'll talk to you again.